Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Hey South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show. Every day, we're driving the debate in America with the fastest moving, hardest hitting, most comprehensive, fact-based commentary on the radio. We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth. Our show is a meeting place of ideas. We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visit.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi. What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fm.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Here the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. We got to talk Jimmy Buffett.
One day at breakfast, he says, I started a new song. He says, about a night and a day in Key West, I played a bar and I got drunk, and coming home, I stepped out of my flip-flop, and I just kept going. I stepped on a beer can. And the next morning, I'm up, and I'm hungover, and I'm trying to make a margarita. I got some shrimp boiling. I can't find the salt. I said, Jimmy, I kind of like this. And he said, yeah, I think I'll call it Margaritaville.
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on your local SuperTalk Mississippi station and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. Hope you had a great weekend. We have a great show today. Hey, I want to mention something before we go to our first guest. Last week, we saw a proposal from a private firm who has been working with the city of Biloxi about the possibility of building the new Pops Ferry Road Bridge. And by going the route of privatization, you're able to build that bridge a lot sooner. And as I learned recently with my situation with my granddaughter, Mila, when an ambulance is on the other side of that bridge, which in this case wasn't the case, it was sort of the COVID situation that slowed the ambulance down. But that with all the trouble with the bridge, if an ambulance did have to come from the other side of the bridge, you know, there are a lot of reasons to be concerned about a bridge that is not reliable, a bridge that is oftentimes, you know, shut down because either mechanical problems or wrecks or whatever the situation might be. We need to update the bridge. The current proposal is to have the $170 million bridge built and would not cost the city a dime. However, it would cost taxpayers a dime, because you know, the people who use it will have to pay a toll, including residents of the city. And so I'm not a big fan right now. I have to be honest with you. I've looked at it. My first reaction to the thought of a bridge, a privatized bridge right in the middle of the city, is not something that I get a warm and fuzzy about, as much as I want that bridge to be rebuilt. You know, you have a bunch of infrastructure money that's in the state now. There's more coming from the federal government. Seems we need to exhaust all those possibilities first. Is there a way to get a portion of the infrastructure money and then privatize the rest of it so that the toll is free for Biloxi residents? I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm gonna have people from the private bridge building company on to talk to them. I'll have representatives from the city to talk about it. But to be quite honest with you, I have to be convinced. I don't like the idea of a toll bridge at Pops Ferry. I just don't like the idea, and we'll see where that can be changed. My mind can be changed about it. So I'm gonna do some education, and we'll see where we go from there. So. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Okay, now we're going to move over to my friend Lee Bond, who's the Chief Executive Officer for Singing River Health Systems. We're going to get an update about what's going on with the hospital system these days. I want to hear the latest on the nursing shortage. There's a lot to talk about in a very short period of time. But first, let me just welcome you back to the show, Lee. How you doing?
Doing good, Ricky. All things considered, we're blessed.
Yeah, so we're blessed on so many dimensions. There is no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, the one thing we can sort of say, at least for now, COVID numbers have fallen dramatically. We seem to have sort of beaten off this latest strain of COVID, and praying that no other strain comes to us soon. But what's your, sort of give us the COVID perspective as of today.
So between the three hospitals, we had went for about 2 weeks with about 6 to 8 patients, and we're running 12 to 14 now. So it's up a little bit, more particularly in the middle in the Ocean Springs area, but nothing to be extremely alarmed about. People ask me all the time, are you worried about the next wave of COVID? And really, that's not my main concern. My main concern is actually the nursing shortage for the state of Mississippi, and probably more concerned with inflation and the impact that has on just everything. And so that's actually, to me, a greater concern than COVID, believe it or not. So that should tell you something.
Well, when I went over and met with you and spent time at Singing River Ocean Springs Hospital, and saw the incredible dedication of your team working, burning the midnight oil trying to save people. At that time, obviously, you had the surgical intensive care full, you had the intensive care full, you even had a couple of people on ventilators down in the emergency room waiting to get into other rooms. We had the opportunity to chat just a little bit about the challenges, this whole notion of the traveling nurse disparity of pay and the existing nurses that were actually employed by the hospital, the work that you were doing to try to get the state to sort of acknowledge that we have a major problem. You were trying to push the bonus program at the time, and I listened to the governor talk the other day. I have to admit that there was one section I didn't hear. But the part that I listened to, which was most of his speech the other day, I did not hear him talk about the hospital issues that were revealed by by COVID. Did I miss something, or did he not talk about it?
It's funny you said Katrina, because COVID was it's a medical Katrina. But no, there's not many folks are talking about it, Ricky, and that's a shame, because in the world we're in today, we're in this today, tomorrow world. We're not thinking about the long term enough. And I think what the world is missing is that our future in Mississippi, from a medical perspective, and it's not a Singing River problem, it's not a Gulf Coast problem, it's a Mississippi problem, in that no one is understanding that, 1 month, 2 months, a year from now, the impact on not having enough nurses in the state. And what's happened, Louisiana expanded Medicaid. They got $1 billion more money in Louisiana than Mississippi has. States like Florida is a wealthier state. We have to own up and not be, maybe we should be embarrassed about it, but the fact is we're a poor state, we're an uneducated state, we're an unhealthy state. It is what it is. If we want to get better, we've got to own up to those things and admit them. And we can't deny true mathematical issues like the nursing shortage. There are going to be places in central Mississippi and North Mississippi and South, everywhere in the next year where people are going to die because they're not going to get good enough health care in the state of Mississippi, because there's a bona fide RN shortage in our state. And we have, back when you were here, we had travel nurses here, but that is completely unsustainable. We are not renewing travel nurse contracts. We can't. Nobody in Mississippi can. Some states that have more money can. Louisiana can do it longer with Medicaid funds. Florida can do it longer because there's more wealthy people that live in Florida. Mississippi can't do that. It's not sustainable. And if we don't address it, mark my words, somebody's going to look back at this a year from now and go, wow.
Yeah. Wow. Medicaid expansion is a big issue. And it's been so politicized, unfortunately. I spent time in New Orleans, as you know, and as publisher of the Times-Picayune, we wrote a bunch of editorials about expanding Medicaid in that state because of the impact of not doing so. What the impact that would have on the healthcare system. It's interesting that you would cite Louisiana as an example of one that can sustain the current situation because they have Medicaid funds.
$1 billion is a lot of money. And Ricky, I won't deny that it's not an easy decision, but we've come to the point where when we're one of only a couple of states that hasn't expanded, it's become an issue of humanity, not an issue of money. And political division rules, not just Mississippi, it's the world we live in today. And that's a shame, because people are going to suffer long term because of our inability to focus on humanity and put political division ahead of that.
I get how it became a populist message at the time. I get it completely. But as it's played out, it's become much different. And we're not just speculating about the data. We've got raw data now about what expansion means to other states and sort of how that applies to Mississippi and how we've been missing out. And I would say that COVID exacerbates this in ways that we never expected that it would. But what are we going to learn from it? How are we going to capture the learnings from this and do something about it? Yeah.
COVID has compounded the problem. And look, I've never been one to say it's free. A lot of people say, oh, it's free to expand. It's not. There's a cost to the state, but there's a cost, and yet there's also a benefit, and the benefit outweighs the cost. And we don't think deeply enough about the overall picture. I am not a fan of welfare programs and things like that, but it's the world we live in. The federal government is printing money. It's the game. We've got to play the game by the rules that are out there. And we have let political division is now sort of something we've got to figure out a way to put in the back seat to do what's best for the people. And, I probably wasn't an advocate for Medicaid expansion at the beginning, but things have changed. Things have changed. And so
I wasn't either. I literally wasn't either. And Bobby Jindal, it's interesting because when I went over, I spent some time with Bobby Jindal. In fact, one day we spent 2 or 3 hours at the mansion over dinner, just the two of us talking about this, because he's literally a genius, and what he knows about hospital policy is really important. And not even he was willing to budge off of this. He said we would be using borrowed money from China to pay for it. It's kind of the way he talked about it. But sometimes you can't get the political dimension away from the realities, particularly in those positions. Hey, why don't we do this? When we come back on the other side, we'll continue that part of the conversation, and we'll go deeper into what's the latest at the hospital. This is Lee Bond, the Chief Executive Officer for Singing River Health System. We'll see you after this break.
Coast Vue on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by J. Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
It's 2021 and J. Allen Toyota still has a lifetime warranty on all new Toyotas. They all come with Toyota Care. We've got a great rental department. We've got great used cars. We've got a parts and service department ready to help you. So when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. SuperTalk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visit.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back. Now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out. The new Bob 106.3.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. We're talking with Lee Bond, this Chief Executive Officer for Singing River Health System. When we went to break, I was mentioning that at one point I had this long, detailed conversation with Bobby Jindal when he was governor, and I was the publisher of the Times-Picayune about, among other things, Medicaid expansion and his point of view about that. And a lot of at that moment in time, though, if you go back to that time frame, it was a lot of speculation, a lot we still didn't know about it, but a lot of time has gone by now. And, if I were the governor, and I'm conservative, if I were the governor, I would say, that was then, but this is now, and COVID exacerbated it, and here's what we've learned from it. And my point of view is changing about it. But there's a lot of time for these holdout governors that's been put into this populist message around this. So I don't know if they can back off of that or not. But any closing thought on that?
I would just say that you reminded me of a quote. A long dispute means both parties are wrong. So there's some wrong on both sides. But the bottom line, Ricky, is right now it puts us at a competitive disadvantage. Mississippi is at a competitive disadvantage by not expanding. And we need to not be last at everything. We need to win. And unfortunately, we need to take the money and do it so that we can be more competitive as a state.
You think about people who aren't getting care. You think about the rural hospitals, but this is not exclusive to the rural hospitals. It affects every hospital in our state. Well, enough about that. Okay, mandates are an issue. First, tell us what the mandates are, and then this quagmire that comes out of it.
So a lot of confusion on the mandates. There's a mandate that's more in the OSHA realm that applies to businesses with 100 or more employees. And there have been Mississippi and several other states joined in a lawsuit, and there's been a little bit of postponement on that and a kind of a wait and see. The December 4th deadline is now January 4th, but we'll see what happens there. In the medical world, CMS, the Centers for Medicaid Services, regulates payments, which about 60% of all hospital payments are Medicare related. That was not covered by that lawsuit. 10 other states filed a lawsuit. Mississippi joined in that this week, and we hope that will get stayed or delayed. As of the moment, nothing has happened, and we are still facing a December 4th deadline where allegedly all hospitals in America have their people 100% vaccinated. And I'll just tell you straight up, Ricky, we are not planning to terminate all of our people December the 5th. We can't. Our highest calling is to save lives. And at some point, they may come and tell us we have to, close down or whatever. But I think we're going to make as big of a stink we can about this because, you come into a hospital in Mississippi and you have an unvaccinated person can save your life when you're having a heart attack, a stroke, or a car wreck. I think it's okay for an unvaccinated person to save your life. And look, we are 100% in favor of vaccines. They're safe, they're effective, but the mandate is not, we've got to not be short-sighted and understand that there's a more important mission out there for healthcare to save lives. So to put the most onerous burden on them, it's really asinine.
What a mess. What a mess. And hopefully this new lawsuit will get the same result. But unfortunately, you're just talking about a delay, and people have to come to their senses. I mean, you probably have hospitals all over the country that are screaming. Here we are, we need to circle back to nurses, incidentally, but here we are screaming about nurses shortage and other shortages of hospital personnel, and we're laying this requirement on top of it.
Ricky, I've had conversations with these nurses. How do you tell? I want to ask the president. How do you tell a nurse you've been a hero for 2 years? You have saved dozens of lives with your hands. If you're not vaccinated, you're fired. Where is the humanity? Where is
Don't do it.
It's ignorant.
I stand your ground, man. Stand your ground, Lee Bond. That's my suggestion, because I mean, sometimes we don't live in reality. I mean, these federal mandates in this realm right now. I mean, additional regulation on top of that. I mean, in this environment, good Lord, we're not in touch with reality. That's what I have to say about that. So let's circle back though. You have ideas, and there's a lot of energy around how to slow down the turnover with RNs, especially. Talk to me more about that.
So the state is getting $1.8 billion in ARPA funds. That is an obscene, unbelievable, ridiculous amount of money. I don't know that there's any way to rapidly spend that money. We have the ability to retain nurses. For our proposal is to give every nurse in Mississippi, every caregiver potentially some funds, but specifically for the RN designation or even LPNs, $20,000 for a 2-year commitment to stay in the state. We think that would make a difference. It would only take about 25% of that money. I do understand that while there's not an there's not going to be a special session called, that in January or February when the legislature goes back, they have some proposals. But the intel I have is they're sort of watered down. And
hold your thought. Hold your thought right there. Kyle froze. I think he may have lost something. So, well, we actually experienced something we've never experienced before during the filming and recording of Coast Vue. We actually had a power outage at Kyle's location, who's producing the show. And so what I want to do in the short time we have left, Lee, is you did a pretty good job of sort of telling us what the issues are. Summarize what we need to do to fix it.
So in my mind, it's pretty simple, Ricky. I mean, we need nurses in Mississippi. We need them to be able to, improve health and save lives throughout this entire great state. The people of Mississippi deserve it. And we have the opportunity to take just 25% of those funds and do a retention program. During that time, we need to focus on a workforce development program, train more nurses, and 2 years allows us to do that. So it allows us a bridge to the long-term solution. But these nurses who stayed in Mississippi and didn't leave for less wages, it's part of it sort of reward them a little bit or give them an incentive to still remain and stay here, and not just stay here, but not get out of the profession. Because as COVID has compounded and exacerbated the situation, more people are thinking about, do I really want to be a nurse? And we've got to find a way, and I think we've got one right there presented before us. There has been some discussion among the legislators. We know about a proposal. The one I've heard is a little too small. It's taken about 50 million of that money. That's not enough. We need to take about 300 million of it, and we need 20,000 per RN, LPN, and something for their caregivers too. But that is the solution. In my mind, it's simple. And those people will spend that money in Mississippi. It'll plow back into the economy. Another thing I'll tell you, Ricky, is there's studies out there. Mississippi is also one of the worst states at spending federal dollars. We get the money, we fight over it, and we sit on it. This is an opportunity to put it to work for one of the most critical things we need. You can't have good schools and good businesses without good health care. People want to live in a state where they know if they have a health problem, they can get it taken care of. And there are going to be places throughout Mississippi, if we don't fix this, that are going to struggle mightily. We'll figure it out here at Singing River like we always do, but it does not have to be this difficult. It's a very simple solution.
I would assume that the hospital association and leaders across the state and the healthcare system is focused on this because really lives are at stake. What do we have to do to get people to see that COVID revealed a significant vulnerability?
You know, I think people think now that COVID is sort of subsided, that everything's going to be okay. And I am, like I said, I am less worried about a COVID wave than I am the impact of Mississippi having less nurses than it's ever had before. That's going to manifest itself in the coming months. And we're talking about, we've proposed the Save the Lifesavers program. It's on our Facebook page. We've talked about maybe organizing a march by all of the nurses. There's 46,000 nurses in the state, 2,000 less than there was 2 years ago, and falling, 500 less enrolled in school than there was 2 years ago. We have got to do something to make people say, hey, Mississippi cares about nurses. You guys were our heroes. Why do we not want to treat them like the heroes that they are? It's a political problem, and the politicians have the ability to fix it. And I hope and pray they'll do the right thing.
I hope that they do as well. Look, as we sort of wind down, we'll forego the additional Thanksgiving message that we planned, but just real quickly, we got less than a minute left. Just say happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We should all count our blessings. And Ricky, I'm most thankful for all of those nurses who decided to stay here in their community and be selfless and altruistic. And those are the biggest, most selfless heroes in the world, in my opinion. So I am most thankful for all of the healthcare heroes that have stayed here and helped Mississippi get through a very difficult time.
God bless you. God bless them and all the other healthcare professionals in coastal Mississippi and across the state. Thank you very much, buddy. We'll see you after this break.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
Get the scoop on what happened in college football and what to expect in the NFL. Each Sunday on Sports Sunday with Michael Borky. Get the story behind the stats, 8 to 10 a.m. on SuperTalk Mississippi, supertalk.fm, and watch the show on supertalk.tv. SuperTalk Mississippi. We're more than just words. This is where the story of your state is told. Proud to cover the Magnolia State like nobody else. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visits.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter. Has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard. And,
wow.
All this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show. Every day, we're driving the debate in America with the fastest moving, hardest hitting, most comprehensive, fact-based commentary on the radio. We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth. Our show is a meeting place of ideas. We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
And now, it's Coast View with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome back to Coast View. That was a first. That was a first to have a power outage during my conversation with Lee Bond from Singing River Health System. Kyle and I have done this show pre-recorded, live. We've done it during and after hurricanes. We've been lucky. At my house, I have a generator, and at his house, we've just been lucky. He runs most of the show from his studio there at his house, as I do from my studio here at my house. And we had a power outage at his house during the last segment, and we were able to recover, and I appreciate what Kyle had to do to pull all that together. But we're literally pieced back together with gum right now, and we're running the show forward like we normally would. Hey, I'm really pleased now to have my friend Alex Littlejohn. If you're a regular listener of Coast View, you know that he's the state director for the Nature Conservancy. And then his director of marine programs, Tom Mohrman, is going to be joining us as well. And Tom, will come to you in just a second. But Alex, how you been?
Man, it's been great. It was, we're right on the cusp of Thanksgiving, and I've enjoyed the drier weather, the cooler weather. And it's really nice when you step out and you hear some speckle bellies flying over your house. It kind of gets the blood flowing. This is one of my favorite times of the year.
It really, it's an amazing time of the year. You have people who love the outdoors, who love to hunt, and to some extent fish, actually, especially here along the coast of Mississippi, where salinity's finally getting back into the water in the Back Bay areas. We're starting to see sort of the normal fall pattern start to settle in, but it's great. And of course, you got deer season, and you've got ducks right around the corner. Also, it's just a great time of year in Mississippi where we all take a step back and get in the moment for a second and thank God for what we have. It's just a special time of the year, isn't it, buddy?
It is. And Saturday, if you were a State or an Ole Miss fan, was pretty strong too.
Yeah, I know. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. Hey, let's move over to you for a second. Tom, you're the director of marine programs. Tell me more about that.
So I've been with the Nature Conservancy for 11 years now. I started right after the oil spill, and most of my job is related to natural resources along the coast. So things that have to do with improving water quality, building habitat, helping fisheries, and nature in general along the coast.
Well, that's good. And obviously, we've had our share of disasters and challenges, whether it be the Bonnet Carré spillway, the oil spill, course, Katrina, which predated you, but any storm challenges the situation. We're going to come in just a minute to a pilot oyster shell recycling program that you guys are involved in. But as a general rule, what's your day-to-day activities look like?
Well, every once in a while, we do get to go out in the field and survey our projects. We have a couple subtitle oyster reef projects in Bay St. Louis that we've been working on for several years, trying to build back habitat in that area. So occasionally we get out, we go on the boat, we sample those sites to see how oysters are doing. Occasionally we'll sample for fish to see if fish production is increased in that area as well. Fortunately, a lot of my time is actually doing grant writing and report writing as well. So I tend to sit behind my desk more than I would like, but we do try to force field work whenever we have the excuse to do so.
Well, it's important, Tom, I get it too, that the Nature Conservancy, what makes it so effective is this ability to raise money, from all types of sources. And without money, you can't do the kind of things that you've been able to do. I think about, Alex, your work on the Phil Bryant WMA, what a significant purchase of land that was for the state, and all the other things that you're involved in. It's not common actually for people to think about the Nature Conservancy as it relates to things like water quality. Talk a little bit about those efforts.
Yeah, and to the financial part of it, we actually completed a financial analysis last week, and in the last 10 years, we have directly invested ourselves in our fundraising efforts and our money. We've directly invested $40 million in conservation for Mississippi. So, and we're not even talking about money leveraged. And you can easily assume it's 1-to-1. And in some cases, and to Tom's credit, that leverage is 2-to-1, something me and you've talked a lot about.
Yeah.
But when you talk about water quality and water quantity and habitat, for people like me and Tom, it goes hand in hand, but we forget that the average individual out there fishing off the Chandelures or fishing off the barrier islands or just hunting on Pascagoula River WMA or anywhere else, they don't really link that upstream conservation and restoration equals downstream improvements and enhancements. So when we talk about oysters, it's just as critical to conserve the headwaters of the Wolf, the Jordan, the Little, and Biloxi rivers, and Pascagoula and the Pearl, as it is to have the oyster reef in the water. And Tom's is the one that's really educated me to the connectivity of that, and it really is all intertwined. It's like your grandmother's quilt. Every patch works.
Wow, you must be a good teacher, Tom.
Well, it's interesting. We have a freshwater and a forest program in the state, and we kind of segregate ourselves, but I tend to think of those programs directly linking to the Gulf, whether those directors know it or not, but they're within our marine program in my mind. So.
Yeah. So I guess, Tom, you're probably in the best position to talk about this pilot oyster shell recycling program. But to think, if somebody goes to a restaurant or any number of other ways that they might consume an oyster, the shells are often just kind of lost. So you guys realize that, and what have you done about it? What's this pilot program all about?
So the first thing to keep in mind, oyster shells are an important substrate for growing new oysters. And in Mississippi, one of the challenges for recovering oysters to the state is to make sure that we have enough oyster substrate or places for new oysters to land available to grow out into the future. Oyster shells are a commodity. They're being used a lot in restoration for different projects to build up those oyster resources. So there's a value attached to those. So letting oyster shells just go to the dump, for example, is potentially a real waste of useful material. So what an oyster shell recycling program in Mississippi would look like, the point would be to intervene to prevent those shells from just going to a landfill and to put them back into nature so they can be used to be substrate for making new oysters and growing the resource more.
Wow, so interesting. I bet, when you, Alex, hear about programs like this, it gets you excited to say, we want to be innovative. We want to put smart recycling programs in place. In this particular case, the fact that it creates the opportunity to grow more oysters in the future, it has to excite you, huh?
It does, and Tom and I have really investigated other programs similar to this across not only the Gulf but the Upper East Coast, and this is a pretty common theme. If a state has what I would call a successful oyster reef restoration plan or oyster restoration plan, this is usually top 1 or 2 priorities that they implement right off the bat. So Tom and I got together, it's been almost 3 years now ago, and said, look, how do we do this? Because I personally believe Mississippi has the ability to set up likely the most successful oyster shell recycling program, mainly because our Gulf Coast is about 90 miles long, and logistically our restaurants are all set up on the same corridor. So when you get into the details of other programs, it's the logistics that cause problems. But when you look at the way our coastline is arranged and where our restaurants are, it makes those logistical problems almost irrelevant because of that ability. And if we can remove that one limitation, we can really set up a very successful program. And it's so interesting to me because it's so easy to connect the user, me, you, Kyle, and Tom, when we're eating, and others, to the resource.
Yeah,
so you become a player in the game, and it's that connectivity. It's like, you know, growing up, we would go pick the purple hull peas from my grandmother's yard, and that's what we ate that night with cornbread. So to me, it's interesting that we can connect the user to the actual restoration effort itself.
It makes a lot of sense. Like at my place up in the Delta, the farmer we work with, who's a really good friend of ours, and he hunts and comes down and goes fishing with me. We're just really good friends. But their family owns, they farm thousands of acres in the Delta, but they also own land in Arizona. And the valley where they own land, about, well, I won't even try to recall the percentage, but it's a very high percentage of all romaine lettuce for the United States is grown in that valley. I was learning more about it. They literally, they pick it and package it right there, and it goes straight to the retail or to the restaurant from there. They've literally knocked out the middleman completely, and they've changed their entire process. Now it's very comprehensive because they have the invasive species can't come in, wild animals can't come in, but they've really focused on that. Sounds to me like that same kind of opportunity is available for the oyster men as well.
Yeah, I'm going to let Tom speak to that because he's the one in it every day and detailed. He can speak at length, so I'm not going to steal that thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think at the heart of this program would be connecting consumers to locally sourced products. Programs like that, people want to be in touch with the source of their food, whether it's a marine resource of some kind, fish, oysters, crab, or if it's a farmed resource. But the closer you can get to the producers, I think the better off you are locally because you're supporting, the places where that food comes from, whether it's the ocean or it's from the land.
Yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, look, when we come back on the other side, we're going to talk a little bit more about the process. This material they get is called a clutch. How does it use to grow lava, et cetera? We'll talk more about that when we come out on the other side.
Be great.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Hey South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We're talking to Del Berra. Take me back to growing up and what it was like in the household with a dad like Yogi Berra.
You know, we grew up with his funny sayings. You know, I remember Dad managing the Mets, and me, Larry, and Timmy are watching the game on TV. And all of a sudden, two streakers run out of the stands on TV, and the camera slips away from them. So when he gets home, me, Larry, and Timmy say, "Hey, Dad, those streakers, what were they, boys or girls? We need to know." And Dad looked us right in the eye and said, "I couldn't tell. They had bags over their heads."
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
When you hear the name, the Nature Conservancy, you know, it's been around for a long time, but you don't think about, as Alex pointed out, $40 million in direct investments. You don't think about the amount of matching funds that they've been able to get, in some cases 1-to-1, in some cases 2-to-1, maybe in some cases more than that. Matching funds are important because you're able to pull grants and other federal money and maybe even some private funds and put them with other money that's raised to really take a project that would be at this level and bring it to a whole new level. But, you know, we're lucky to have leaders like Alex Littlejohn in the state. He's the state director of Nature Conservancy, and the kind of innovations that they're involved in is truly remarkable. I had an opportunity actually to work with Alex on the Conservation Trust Fund that we work so closely together on, and hopefully we'll get that next year. And then you think, you know, you get people like Tom Mohrman, who's a director of marine programs for the Nature Conservancy. You get them focused on raising money and doing innovative things. In this case, a pilot oyster shell recycling program that can. You think about growing oysters, but it really is about. It's almost like reconfiguring the supply chain to some extent, what you're talking about. But let's come back to what I mentioned before we went to break. This clutch, this natural material that using the oyster shell enables for you. Talk to me about how that's used to actually grow future oysters.
So the way oysters reproduce in the wild is they're sessile organisms. They stay in the same place their entire lives, and when they're ready to reproduce, they release larvae into the water, and that larva has a couple weeks to float around and drips in the currents and ends up wherever it ends up. At some point it gets triggered to settle out, and it just sinks to wherever they are. So they'll sink down, and when they land on something that's a firm or hard substrate, they'll stay there for the rest of their lives. If they don't have any place to land, if there's no culch material there, for example, or other oysters, or even an old shoe, they don't make it. They need something to grow on, and that's why culch planting using oysters, oyster shell, in some cases limestone. In other parts of the country, they use crushed concrete. If there's nothing for them to land on, then there are no oysters that are going to come back. They need to be in the right spot.
So it's interesting. Oysters are a really important indicator of the health of the estuary, aren't they?
Yeah, most definitely. They are filter feeders, so they're ingesting all the water that's coming through. Some oysters can filter as much as 40 gallons of water a day. There are lots of estimates to that point, but that's a lot of water no matter what. And you get a nice healthy reef, they're going to be doing a lot to clean out phytoplankton and other nutrients that are captured in that food source.
I've had Mike Arguelles on the show before. He's into aquaculture, as you probably know, and you have this burgeoning, entrepreneur community that's getting into aquaculture of oysters in these cages and whatever. That's cool to be able to see, isn't it?
Yeah, some of the best tasting oysters I've ever had have come from the Deer Island aquaculture farm.
Yeah, no doubt. We had some for Christmas last year, and good Lord, they were really good, really good. Alex, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to mention on the back end of Tom's comments, it's interesting. Tom has really educated me personally on the fact, the uniqueness of oysters is that they're the one of the true species that serve as their own habitat. So when you think about an oyster reef, you know, a lot of us will think about, we're catching specks and reds and triple tails off of these reefs. And at the same time, this is the same resource that we're selling and utilizing at the restaurants. And then on top of that, you get the added benefit of the water filtration and the clean water availability that they provide. I mean, it's likely the most under-recognized, underappreciated resource out there on the Gulf Coast, mainly because you can't see them when they're underwater, but every one of us know what they do. And when you really look at it, the ability to describe them in that capacity is just incredible. And you see just how incredible a role that they play.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I've had Moby Solange on many times talking about bottlenose dolphin and how they're sort of the canary in the landmine. If something's wrong and you find a dead porpoise, you can really do a lot of research to really understand the health of the health of the estuary system. And right behind that is probably the oyster. I mean, and what not only contributing to helping make it better, but telling us a lot about the health of the situation. That's why when the Bonnie Carey Spillway was opened and we had the algae bloom and all of that, and it just decimated some oyster populations, particularly over in the western side of the Mississippi Sound. Such an important thing that you guys are involved in. But again, coming back to you, Alex, it's really interesting to see once again that the Nature Conservancy is hitting on so many different cylinders, this being just one of them. But you've had a good year, haven't you?
We've really had a great couple years. The 40 million you spoke to earlier, that's simply direct money over the last 10 years that Tom and our forest program director, Becky Stowe, our freshwater director, Scott Lemons, and our fundraising team, Susan and Cody. I mean, look, our success is due in large part to the fact that they have stayed laser focused on trying to help move the conservation needle. And we've had some great successes, and we want to continue that. We think I loved your comment earlier. We think that Mississippi is likely the capital of the outdoors in the U.S., and we've got so much to show the rest of the nation in the ways that we can take care of our resources, but at the same time enjoy them. And we want to be a player in that game, and I feel like we are, and I really want to grow in that capacity. And it takes private dollars and fundraising dollars to do it, and I can't thank our donors and supporters enough, because at the end of the day, that's really what makes our operation tick, is those people making the donations to us and getting us out the door and making opportunities like this viable.
A reality. Yeah. And the short time we have left, Tom, you want to kind of sum it up, what the future holds for this effort?
Well, we're currently doing a pilot phase, so we're looking into the feasibility of the cost of logistics, how much material is out there. But the next part is going to be engaging with restaurants. They're going to be the most important partner of this project. They're the ones who are going to make it work. And we've already laid out the groundwork for that. We've surveyed about 26 of them and had very good responses back. And we're very thankful for that input, and it's helping.
That is great to hear. So anyway, hey, you guys, Nature Conservancy continues to do amazing work. Thank you so much, Alex and Tom, for joining me today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
You bet. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.